tavern light on this merry night. Let us drink and drink one down to wonderful, wonderful Copenhagen, salty old green of the sea.
Hello, this is Pierre Ethier, Class 12. Today is the 12th of July, 2011. I'm in the city of Copenhagen. Precisely, I'm at the airport in the SS Lounge. I'm not allowed to video record, but I can do an audio recording. So today I'm going to talk about the Code of Honor. One thing interesting about the Code of Honor, I made some research on the internet, it seems to not be criticized much at all by the detractors of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard, and so forth, probably because it just has a bunch of rules that make sense. However, not always, and this is what I'm going to clarify. The problem occurs with the second point on the code, which is never withdraw allegiance once granted. Well, there's a problem with this, because you grant allegiance, now this is very static. Now, group changes, philosophy changes, governments get overthrown. So if you have given allegiance to your land and the Bolsheviks take over, what are you going to do? In fact, if you have given allegiance to your land and allegiance to the support of the Tsar, then it is impossible for you to continue to give allegiance to both those groups once the Soviet Revolution has started, because one is against the other. So this is an impossibility to enforce. Same thing. Albert Einstein definitely gave allegiance to Germany when he was a boy, but I think you will agree with me that he had remained and continued to give allegiance to the new regime, he would have most likely ended in Auschwitz or worse. So it was obviously a threat of sanity to no longer give allegiance to Germany once it's changed. The same thing can be said about the Church of Scientology. The Church of Scientology that I left in 1992 is definitely not the one that I joined in the 1970s. Definitely not. It cannot be, in any stretch of the imagination, be called the same group. Gradually, through the 1980s, the group changed and it transmogrified itself to something that cannot be recognized. And I left in 1992 because I had drawn the line that I would only go so far, and as long as I could apply tech and help others, then I would continue to do what I was doing. And now I was told you can no longer audit, then knowing that this was a corrupt organism from earlier observations, and I had no motive to stay. And if I had stayed in that organization, I would have violated just about every other rule in the Code of Honor. So that's one of the problems in the Code of Honor, is that this point, being static, can contradict all the others. So concerning the Code of Honor, point number 1, never desert of comrade in need, in danger or trouble. Well, if your wife, your friends, those that depend on you, get kicked out of the church unjustly by whim and by sadism, it's expected that you drop them without the slightest respect for them, and of course, you will have to withdraw allegiance toward those people, your family, your friend, your children, your parents, because the church demands it. So in other words, they ask you to be selective about which allegiance you must grant, and of course theirs is always the only one that counts. Point number 3, never desert a group to which you owe your support. Well, of course, if the church has become completely corrupt, one certainly doesn't owe his support to it any longer. An organization that lies to its people, that give false statistics, whose leader is the most downstat of all and claim he's upstat because it has false and padded stat and hides his stat, is not an organization to which anyone owes one's support. Then, of course, the number 4, never desert yourself or minimize your strength of power. Of course, the church will say, you are unable to judge, only we are. So therefore you're wrong and we're right. So now that's disparaging yourself to decide that you cannot even judge things for what they are. Number 6, never compromise with your own reality. Well, you've done your research on the internet, you found that they lie. So now they demand that you stay because you must forget it all. Just go to sleep, obey us, we know all, you know nothing. Of course, it's all from an image. Number 8, do not give or receive communication unless you yourself desire it. Of course, enforcing communication is one of the attributes of the suppressive. And if you don't want to receive communication from the church, expect the ethics officer to be in communication with you. You should, of course, apply any rules of the Code of Honor as you wish, as long as they do not negatively affect the church or act against its own interest. Of course, this is hogwash. Number 9, your self-determinism and your honor are more important than your immediate life. While you've decided that they're rotten, they say we're going to make your life miserable. Well, if you're going to follow the Code of Honor, then you have to go through and do what is right. And it shows how wrong they are, because they themselves tell you that you should take your immediate life as more important than your self-determinism and honor. This is what actually the church is telling you to do. So this shows how wrong they've become. Your integrity to yourself is more important than your body. Well, it's a bit like the previous point. Never fear to hurt another in a just cause. Now that's an interesting point, because it is so vague, that rule, that anyone who decides, well, this is a just cause. The just cause is the stats have to be brought up no matter what this week. So therefore, I'm going to be horrible to everyone. I'm going to treat them with the greater disrespect, enslave them, implant them, punish them, because it's a just cause. Of course, I'm going to charge, says the registrar. Pierre Ethier was a specialist of that, by the way. And my stats are down, of course. The just cause is my stats are up, so I'm going to ring 20 people on their Visa, MasterCard, and Amex without their permission and consent, well knowing that some of them are above their limit. So this way the org will have more money, and they cannot complain, because if you complain to the credit card company, you're committing a suppressive act. So therefore, that's perfect. So I'm going to charge without permission the credit card, and apparently Pierre Ethier was not the only one, but he was definitely a specialist on that point. To summarize on the Code of Honor, line number 2, never withdraw allegiance once granted. As I said earlier, the only problem with that rule is that it assumes that the group never change, that a group should always, forever, be member of. Well, that's greatly idealistic. Applying that rule means that if someone becomes victim of a fraud, then he cannot get out of it, because he will be withdrawing allegiance once granted, even though it was obtained illegally or through deceitful means. Finally, the most interesting point about this rule about never withdrawing allegiance once granted, it's from the tape, The Code of Honor, from 1952, where Hubbard explained each rule of that code. And on that particular one, he doesn't say that it is bad per se. It says it simply comes under posset processing. And he says, to quote him, if you grant allegiance, you make a posset that you are going to have allegiance to this group or this entity or this God. And immediately afterward, perhaps you say, well, I'm not going to. So it's 10 times as bad to be a backslider as to never have been, because a person who never was and never did make the posset, of course, isn't trying to overcome a postulate. But the person who says, I am now a true son of the church, and a few years later, all of a sudden discovered that he's not a true son of the church, and he doesn't want to have anything to do with the church anymore, he really goes to the devil. And the only thing that is making him go to the devil is that he postulated that he was. Well, the answer is quite simple. The Code of Honor was written in 1952. A tremendous amount of research and development have come, and new technology been developed that can overcome earlier posset. So posset processing is available, and therefore it is possible to undo the possets without being still stuck in them, and therefore be completely free from any former allegiances that turn out to have been mistakes. So this is quite possible, and this is the one thing that the church doesn't want to admit, is that such processing is available, but they won't deliver it. I do, and perhaps other people of goodwill do. So this wraps it up, this talk about the Code of Honor. I hope this was useful for some of you. Thank you for listening.